In this video, we're going to share with you 3 different kinds of laksas. The Penang Laksa, the Singapore Laksa, as well as the Sarawak Laksa. We're going to share with you how they taste like and how are they different from one another.
The whole shop smells of this laksa. So good. I've never had original one before.
So flavorful. The broth just hits you right to the core. So good.
If you haven't caught up with us yet, we are Aaron and Shar. Since last year, we've been traveling across Asia and Australia from our home base, the sunny Singapore. Trying new types of food is such a huge part of our lives, and ever since we began our travel series, we've made it a point to relish some truly unique cuisines around the world. From street side stores to Michelin-rated establishments, come along and join us as we chronicle our gastronomic experiences, one food adventure at a time.
So we are currently standing outside of Penang Road famous Laksa. This Laksa store has earned itself a Michelin Bib Gourmand, and Penang Laksas here are typically Assam based Laksa.
We've heard so much about this laksa from blogs and our friends, and we can't wait to try it.
Oh, super delicious. It's like super fresh. It's like super sour, very tangy and chewy, and it gives an orchestra of all these different kind of flavors mixed together as one, and it's really delicious.
So good. This is so good. I've not had Assam laksa for such a long time. I think the last time I had it was in JB. But the original is so good. I've never had original one before. I like how all the textures come together. The noodles is like soft and comforting, and the pineapple and the onions are like so crunchy. They add so many dimensions to the Assam laksa.
There's also a fishy kind of ingredient, and apparently it's called mackerels. And this mackerels adds to so much of the flavor together with the lai fan, which is basically called rice noodles. I love it.
The Assam flavour is so rich. I feel like it encapsulates the entire history of Penang. One interesting thing about Penang Laksa is that it doesn't use coconut milk, unlike the other laksas that we are going to try later on.
Do you know that at some point of time in the last decade, CNN actually rated Assam Laksa or the Penang Laksa as like the top 7 food in the world? Trust me, I usually don't eat Assam Laksa in Singapore, but I think going back to Singapore, I'll probably eat more Assam Laksas or Penang Laksas. So next up, we're going to try the famous Singapore Laksas. We are here in Singapore, and we heard that Katong Laksa is one of the better laksas in Singapore, and along Mountbatten Road there are a couple of laksa places, so we drove all the way down to Roxy Square, and we are here to try the Janggut Laksa. We ordered this huge bowl of Janggut Laksa, the Singapore Katong Laksa.
The first thing you notice is the colour of the laksa gravy, and it's so different from the colour of the Penang Laksa. This gravy is more towards the yellow instead of orange or red, and it gives me the impression that there's a lot of coconut milk inside. So the laksa comes in 3 sizes: the small, the medium and the large. The small one is $5.50, and the large one, which is the one that we got, is $7.50.
We've tried Janggut Laksas from other stores before, but this is our first time trying Janggut Laksa from this original store can't wait to try it. So what's so unique about this Katong Laksa in terms of its ingredients?
You can see like the remains of the coconut on top of the gravy.
And this tub itself, it gives the laksa so much of its texture.
For the toppings, there are a few toppings. Supposed to have ham, the cockles, but we didn't get it. There's also slices of prawns. They slice the prawns into half. And then there is also fish cake. Slices and slices of fish cake.
One interesting thing that they have on the side is the laksa leaves. Those are also shredded up as well. The chili smells super fragrant. It's like the antithesis of the entire coconutty taste. Because like the coconut taste is supposed to mellow the entire spiciness, but this is the spicy sister that is super important in a Katong Laksa.
And of course, you can't forget to mention the noodles. It's the thick vermicelli noodles and it's cut into many pieces.
I like the way that the noodles soak up so much of the coconut flavor, it just hits you. And the gravy itself is still on the very sweet side, right? It's almost as if it is cooked with all the prawns as well as the coconut milk together for a very long time, giving this really rich, delicious coconutty flavor of the broth.
The lady who was making it was like making it with so much love and care. Although we had to wait very long, I feel like this is so worth it. Next up, we'll be heading to Kuching for Sarawak Laksa.
We are here in Kuching, Sarawak.
And we are here to try the Sarawak Laksa.
And at Chenhui Cafe, this is among the best of the Sarawak Laksa you can find in Kuching. This is probably the most famous Sarawak Laksa in the whole entire Kuching because Anthony Bourdain actually came here.
Damn. Best breakfast ever.
The difference between Sarawak Laksa here as well as Laksa across every other parts of the world is that Sarawak Laksa here contains belacan, which is spicy prawn paste. And this spicy prawn paste makes the Laksa super aromatic. So, it's Char's first time trying Sarawak Laksa here, so she's going to take the first bite.
The first bite you take, the taste just hits you. It's like a mixture of spiciness and sourness all together, but not as sour as the Assam Laksa in Penang. The vermicelli is soft and is cooked to perfection. They also have shredded egg on the Sarawak Laksa. The texture of this egg is so good. Usually, shredded egg has some form of very mushy texture, but this one tastes quite tangy.
It's so flavorful. The broth just hits you right to the core. I got the biggest one, so they gave me big prawns. It is indeed really fresh. I think the shredded chicken is a unique ingredient in Sarawak Laksa because you don't see shredded chicken in other forms of Laksa, I don't think so.
So good.
This belacan here actually packs the punch. And every single gulp, you can feel that belacan going through your throat. It's super delicious.
I have a feeling everyone will be coming back here again and again over the next week.
So good. Over the past couple of months, we've tried laksas from Penang, from Kuching, and from Singapore.
But to explain the differences and to do a comparison, we thought we could start by recounting our experiences across the three places.
In Penang, we didn't just visit one, but we visited two different laksa locations. The first one is the Penang Road famous laksa which we featured, and the second one is the Wan Dao Tou laksa. And what we realized is that the core flavors of the laksa remains very similar across these two different stores, but it's the way that it's plated and the way that the ingredients are put together that makes them unique in their own respective ways. Also, for one tau to laksa, they serve other side dishes as well. We ordered this plate of really crispy spring rolls. Do you remember?
I remember.
Yeah, I find that it complements super well with the laksa when you pair it with them together, because one of them is very soupy and very sour and the other one is deep fried and crispy.
In Singapore, when we were at Roxy Square, we saw people pair the Katong Laksa with banana leaf otah. Although we didn't get the banana leaf otah, I think that the sweetness and the spiciness of the otah would enrich the flavours of the Katong Laksa. There are other laksa locations around Singapore, but we went to the one at Roxy Square because it is near where Katong Laksa originated. The history and rivalry of laksas around Singapore is too complicated to explain, but the one that we went to, the Janggut Laksa, is one of the more famous ones in Singapore.
And for Sarawak Laksa, we decided to go to one of the more famous places within Kuching. In fact, we did our research and we realized that this place is not far away from Kuching downtown. In fact, we went to this place called Chun Hui Cafe, and Chun Hui Cafe was made famous by Anthony Bourdain when he was filming this documentary called Parts Unknown back then, and he actually visited this place twice, right? Once in 2005 and then a second time round in 2015. So we knew that we had to go there.
Across Singapore and Malaysia, these laksa stalls were not in restaurant settings but rather in coffee shop settings. But these coffee shop stalls were not ordinary coffee shop stalls either. We went to the more famous ones in each location.
Yeah, so it kind of like brings out like the humbleness of each of these bowls, right?
Yeah.
Which we really like a lot about these laksas. Shah, I think this is one of the hardest and most difficult questions to answer.
We do not consider ourselves hardcore foodies, but we can only share based on our experiences trying laksas at these different places.
To answer the question, what defines a good bowl of laksa, maybe you should first answer the question, how do we define laksa? On some websites, we found that laksas originate from the Peranakan culture, but I do not know if that is always true. And on other sites, laksa is typically spicy, but based on our experience eating Assam laksa, it's actually tamarind based, which is sour in the first place, so it's not really spicy.
Based on our research, the word Laksha can be found in the 10th century Arab cookbook written in Baghdad. The direct translation of the word means slippery, but it is more commonly referred to as noodles.
Yeah, in Sanskrit, we found that the word laksa actually means 100,000, and it refers to the numerous strands of vermicelli. So this probably means that laksa probably contains some form of noodles.
Apart from the noodles, the laksa probably also contains some form of broth and also some local ingredients.
So for me, a good bowl of laksa consists of an extremely complex blend of taste of these different ingredients put together, right? So regardless of whether or not it is Assam based or coconut based, a good bowl usually consists of ingredients that are fresh, locally sourced, and prepared in a way that gives this dish a very rich and enticing Southeast Asian flavor.
Also, in Penang and in Singapore, we noticed that the laksa vendors rinse the noodles and the ingredients with the broth before actually adding the broth to the bowl. I wonder if this process enhances the flavors, making it a good bowl of laksa.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments, what do you guys think is a good bowl of laksa? Having lived in Singapore, we are very exposed to laksas around the region. In particular, we are very exposed to Penang laksa as well as Sarawak laksa, which originates from Malaysia. These are the more common forms of laksas that we can find easily around coffee shops and hawker centers here in Singapore.
After eating bowls and bowls of laksa over the past 20 years, I noticed that the taste of the laksa vary ever so slightly from stall to stall. There's so much work that goes into making a bowl of laksa, and that is why we have so much admiration for their craft.
Yeah, you know, for me, like the only thing I know how to make is the instant noodles version of the laksa that you can cook at home, or at most maybe with the laksa paste that you can actually find easily from the local supermarkets. So having to produce this laksa video, I have started to wonder if each of these laksa vendors have their own secret, unique way of actually preparing the ingredients as well as the broth that makes them so outstanding.
In Singapore, we are more acquainted with the Katong Laksa, the Penang Assam Laksa and the Sarawak Laksa, but only through making this video that we realized that around this region, there are so many variants of laksas.
Yes, laksa actually originated in Southeast Asia and is popularized by the Silk Road as well as the maritime trade. The reason is because this region has all the spices that is very unique, that brings out the flavor of the curry.
So we found that in Thailand, there is a Siamese laksa.
In Indonesia, there's the Bogor Laksa as well as the Betawi Laksa.
In Malaysia, there are many regional variants, including the Laksam, the Kari Laksa, the Laksa Kuah Putih, or the Laksa Kuah Merah.
Yeah, sometimes these laksa variants could be just very subtle variations. Like for example, the Siamese laksa as well the Assam laksa. The only difference is that the Siamese laksa has coconut milk and the Penang Assam laksa doesn't have coconut milk. And sometimes laksa between different countries could be very different too. Like in Terengganu, the Laksa Kuah Putih's broth is completely devoid of spiciness. The spiciness actually comes from the sambal belacan. Whereas in Johor Laksa, Johor is made with spaghetti, which makes me wonder if that is actually laksa in the first place. In the course of research, we realized that laksa banjar in Indonesia is made with steamed rice noodle balls rather than rice noodles or vermicelli.
People on Wikipedia has also compiled a long list of laksa variants. Tatler has also a list of 10 different types of laksas with links to images on Instagram.
So it really seems that there are a lot of different kinds of laksas across the region that really makes me want to travel to try all of them.
Tasting laksas from the various cities has revealed the diverse interpretations of this dish, and it has showed how much pride the different regions have of their laksas.
Yeah, almost as if these laksas becomes a very nationalistic conversation, right? It almost feels like people start claiming and putting their flags like my laksa is the best laksa out there. Then it becomes a very rivalristic conversation and reinforce a nation's identity through food.
But if we look beneath the rivalry, we can see how much of the history and the culture shapes each region's laksa. For example, Singapore's Katong laksas have noodles which are finely chopped, and the reason behind that is because in the past, these laksas used to be sold illegally on hawkers on push carts. And back then, the police occasionally apprehended these illegal hawkers, and in order to avoid unwanted attention from these policemen, they actually chopped the noodles into smaller pieces so that the customers can eat quickly.
So for Singapore laksa, it's very pragmatic, right, in terms of rationale. I think for Penang laksa too, it's also equally pragmatic in the way that they choose not to use coconut milk but instead use fish or instead use mackerel as the main ingredient. And the reason for this is because coconut is a very easily transportable commodity and usually they can be sold for profits. Whereas for mackerels, it's very plentiful at that point of time because it's not a very easily transportable good, and the reason for that is not easily refrigerated. Fish itself is relatively cheap, relatively plentiful during those early colonial times.
For the Sarawak laksa, Anthony Bourdain called it the breakfast of the gods. But actually when we were there, we saw the hawkers selling it throughout the day, and personally I wouldn't mind eating it for breakfast, lunch or dinner because of how spicy and hearty it is.
It's not as if in Singapore there's no good Penang laksa or no good Sarawak laksa. There are actually quite a lot of laksa places around Singapore that serves and sells really good laksas too. But I think it's the entire experience that surrounds laksa that's all about soaking in the atmosphere, that shapes the way of how we interpret and how we feel about these laksas, that makes a huge difference to our experience. So I'll go with the Sarawak laksa hands down.
Why?
Because Sarawak laksa just gives you that much needed coffee punch at the beginning of each day. It's super tasty, it's super delicious, and gets me super refreshed and recharged after dousing this really spicy bowl of belacan into my throat. I really love it. And given where my grandparents grew up and a city I've visited quite often, I would definitely have the Sarawak laksa all day, every day.
My grandparents didn't grow up in Penang, but I would definitely choose the Penang Assam laksa because of how perfect the portion of laksa is. Like after eating it, I wouldn't feel too full. And also, there are vegetables on the laksa, and it makes me feel like I'm having a very healthy meal.
But I also do not want to forget about the Singapore Katong Laksa too. It is very delicious too. It's something that we can easily get it from our nearby hawker centers, and it's something that tastes really comforting.
Yeah, it's more of like a staple food to us.
So that's it. I hope you have learned something new about laksas today. I'll see you guys in our next video where we'll be traveling to
Vietnam.
Bye bye!